On the edge of a hot, wind-shaped desert plain, a hyena pauses at a jumble of sun-warmed rocks. Its search is routine. Smells, sounds, and movement all hint at possible food. From between the stones, a much smaller animal appears. A spiny-tailed lizard, body flattened, tail armed with hard, ringed scales. Instead of fleeing across open sand, it turns sideways, positioning its tail like a shield at the entrance to its burrow. The hyena tests the space, curious and cautious. The lizard does not attack, and the hyena does not pounce. Instead, both animals rely on behaviors shaped by thousands of years in this arid landscape. What happens when a large omnivore accustomed to scavenging meets a reptile built for defense rather than speed? And why would such a small lizard stand its ground? This documentary explores a real natural encounter, sometimes observed in North African and East African deserts and semi-deserts, where hyenas and spiny-tailed lizards can share the same habitat. We will look at how a small reptile equipped with specialized defenses can discourage a much larger mammal, and how both animals use instinctive strategies that reduce risk and conserve energy. Everything here is based on documented animal behavior and ecological research. The foraging patterns of hyenas, the burrow-guarding tactics of spiny-tailed lizards, genus Uromastyx, and the way desert environments shape interactions between predators, scavengers, and herbivores. This story matters because it shows that survival in nature is not always about strength or size. Often, it is about design, timing, and choices that minimize injury for both sides. Important lessons in ecosystems where every mistake is costly and resources are limited. This documentary is presented for educational and informational purposes only. All content is based on real-world animal behavior, supported by scientific research, ecological studies, and verified observations from reputable wildlife organizations and natural history sources. No information is fabricated, fictionalized, or exaggerated. Before we continue, please like, share, comment, and subscribe to support the channel and help us bring more nature stories to life. The day begins as most desert days do, cool in the early morning, then rapidly warming. As temperatures rise, the spiny-tailed lizard leaves its burrow to bask. It must absorb heat to become active enough to feed on dry leaves, flowers, and shrubs. Its largely plant-based diet unusual among lizards of its size. At the same time, a hyena moves through the same landscape. Depending on the region, this may be a striped or spotted hyena, both known for their adaptability. Rather than constantly chasing prey, hyenas often follow scent trails, investigate burrows, and check rock crevices for anything edible, from fallen fruit and insects to small vertebrates or carcass remains. The hyena pauses at the rocks where the lizard basks. A faint movement catches its attention. The lizard does not sprint away across open ground, where it would be exposed. Instead, it slips back toward the entrance of its burrow, a tunnel system it dug itself in compact soil, and turns, blocking the opening with its heavily armored tail. The hyena lowers its head, sniffing. Its powerful jaws could crush bone, but using that power on a thorny, muscular tail would risk injury to its sensitive nose and muzzle. The lizard responds with short tail flicks and firm body bracing inside the tunnel. It does not chase or threaten. It simply denies access. The heat continues to rise. For both animals, energy conservation matters. The hyena must decide whether to keep investigating or move on to safer, easier options in a landscape full of uncertainty. And now a new element develops. The wind shifts, carrying different scents across the plain. Will the hyena persist at the blocked burrow, or will changing conditions redirect its search? Stop here in the story. Behavioral and ecological analysis. Spiny-tailed lizards, Uromastyx species, are well documented for their defensive use of burrows and their characteristic tail. The tail is ringed with hard, spiny scales and supported by strong muscles. Their primary defense strategy is not fighting in open terrain, but retreating to a burrow and using that tail as a barrier, sometimes wedging themselves inside, so they are difficult to pull out. This behavior reduces the need for risky escape, runs in extreme heat. Unlike many lizards that rely heavily on insects, spiny-tailed lizards are predominantly herbivorous. This diet ties them closely to plant availability and sun exposure, reinforcing their daily pattern of basking, feeding near cover, and retreating during peak heat. Their burrows also serve as important microhabitats, moderating temperatures and providing shelter for other small desert species. Hyenas, in contrast, are highly flexible omnivores. Spotted hyenas are often associated with group hunting, while striped hyenas rely more on solitary scavenging and opportunistic foraging. In both cases, avoidance of unnecessary risk is common. An injury from a defensive animal, even a small one, can have serious survival costs. As a result, hyenas frequently investigate, test, and then move on if a potential meal is well defended or energetically inefficient. This kind of interaction is not about courage or confrontation. It is about cost-benefit behavior shaped by evolution. The lizard relies on architecture and armor. The hyena relies on assessment and flexibility. Both behaviors contribute to a broader ecological balance. Burrowing reptiles aerate soils and influence plant communities, while hyenas recycle nutrients by cleaning up remains and controlling populations through opportunistic predation. Together, they demonstrate a key principle of desert life. Survival often depends less on conflict and more on strategies that help animals avoid it. The wind change carries new scents across the plain: dry grass, distant antelope, and the faint trace of an older carcass somewhere beyond the rocks. The hyena pauses, reading the information in the air. For now, it stays. A potential food source at its feet is still worth testing. It shifts its weight and scrapes lightly at the entrance. Dust loosens, but the tunnel is narrow by design. The lizard has wedged itself just inside, ribcage flattened and tail braced outward. Its body works like a stopper in a bottle, a shape perfected for these tight passages. Any attempt to pull it free would be difficult. Minutes pass, and the day warms further. For the lizard, temperature matters as much as safety. It needs heat to function, but too much heat can become dangerous. It must balance remaining near the entrance, where it can breathe freely and sense changes outside, with retreating deeper into the burrow, where air is cooler but awareness is reduced. The hyena tests again, this time not with force but with evaluation, sniffing the tail, circling the rock, checking for another exit. Hyenas are skilled problem solvers in their environments, but they are also conservative with energy. Digging into compact desert soil takes time and moisture, both limited resources under the midday sun. Small insects skitter across the stones. A bird calls from a nearby acacia. The moment is calm, but the decision is not simple. Two animals, very different in size and lifestyle, are both facing the same desert rule: spend only the energy you can afford. The shadows shorten. The lizard must decide how long it can hold its position. The hyena must decide whether to commit to a difficult task or follow another scent carried on the wind. As the air shimmers with heat, the hyena suddenly lifts its head. The breeze delivers a stronger signal from farther away. Something else may be available. Will it abandon the burrow and move on, or return after the heat of the day when the desert changes again? The hyena stands motionless for a moment, listening and scenting. Hyenas rely heavily on olfaction, often detecting opportunities at long distances. The new scent on the wind is clearer now, suggesting an easier resource somewhere beyond the rocky outcrop. It gives the burrow entrance a final inspection. The armored tail still blocks the narrow gap. The spiny-tailed lizard remains firm, muscles locked, conserving motion while maintaining its defensive posture. There is no chase, no pursuit into the tunnel, only a standstill shaped by design. In nature, most encounters do not end with dramatic conflict. They end with assessment. For the hyena, the calculation is simple. A small, well-protected animal in a fortified shelter is a low-reward, high-effort option. In dry environments where water and calories are precious, such calculations happen countless times every day. The hyena steps away from the rocks and walks into the warming plain, following the new scent. Its role in the ecosystem continues, scavenging, occasionally hunting, and cycling nutrients back into the landscape. Inside the burrow entrance, the lizard remains still for several more minutes. Patience is part of its survival strategy. Only when vibrations and scent traces fade does it slowly ease backward, deeper into the tunnel to cool, then later forward again to resume basking and feeding when conditions feel safe. The confrontation never needed to become physical. Defense worked through structure and posture. The hyena's flexibility avoided unnecessary risk. Both animals continue their day, shaped by the same landscape, yet guided by different strategies. Behavioral and ecological analysis. This type of encounter highlights an important truth of wildlife biology. Standoffs are common, and outright fights are relatively rare. Most animals rely on signals, barriers, and risk evaluation long before any physical contact occurs. Spiny-tailed lizards use burrows with narrow entrances to exclude larger animals. Spiny tails as a deterrent rather than a weapon of pursuit. Body flattening and wedging behaviors to resist pulling. Unlike many desert reptiles that flee long distances, Uromastyx species often stay near shelter because sprinting across open ground increases exposure to heat and predators. Their strategy is architectural: build safety first, then use it when needed. Hyenas, meanwhile, are classic energy economists. Research shows that they evaluate scavenging and hunting opportunities before committing effort. They frequently abandon difficult targets. They benefit more from opportunistic feeding than prolonged digging for small prey. This flexibility helps explain their wide distribution and ecological importance. Hyenas remove carcasses, limit disease spread, and influence where other animals feed and move. The interaction between these two species is not a contest of bravery or aggression. It is an example of cost-benefit behavior, shaped by evolution and environment. Both animals avoided injury. Both conserved energy. Both continued fulfilling their ecological roles. In the desert, survival favors efficiency. A small herbivorous reptile defended itself not with size, but with design and patience. A powerful omnivore demonstrated that walking away can be the best strategy in a harsh environment. Moments like these remind us that ecosystems are networks of decisions: when to feed, when to hide, when to persist, and when to move on. Each choice, repeated across thousands of animals and years, shapes desert communities and keeps energy flowing through the food web. If you enjoyed this journey into the wild, subscribe for more real animal stories. Leave a comment below. What part surprised you most?